Welcome back, everyone. How was that amazing session that happened right before this? We are live at ASU+GSV, whether you are watching one of our videos from this past week or tuning in live in the lobby right now. We are so excited that hopefully you all are having a fantastic ASU+GSV so far. I'm Claire. I'm a vice president on the investment team at GSV Ventures and cover a lot of our AI focus. And I am so excited to have with me here the CEO of Speak, Connor Zwick. Speak is one of the most exciting language learning apps in the space right now. It gets you talking. In the first week of usage, Speak users usually say over 1,100 words out loud and gain fluency through immersion. It's basically an on-the-go conversational partner that you can access 24/7, and I'll let Connor speak more to it. But we figured we'd spend this time to learn a little bit about Speak, learn a little bit about Connor's journey as a founder, and I know many of you in the audience are founders, so we're so excited to just amplify the story of how Speak's been able to build an amazing education innovation company in the last couple of years. So I guess, Connor, for the audience, just to level set, what is Speak? How is it different from what exists in the market today?
Well, thanks for having me, Claire. I think you did a great job, but Speak is really just the ultimate way to learn a language to conversational fluency. So what that means is, like, we, as you said, like, get people speaking as much as possible and really try to like mimic and replicate like the experience you might have immersing yourself in a country or working with like a really good language tutor.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I feel like I've heard anecdotes of people say that when they've used Speak, they can't even tell the difference in a real live human that they've interacted with before. I'd love to hear a little bit more before we hear about the Speak story, would love to hear a little bit more about your background, because you've been in ed tech for a long time, right? Or with Flashcards Plus. Would love to hear a little bit more about your journey as a founder as well.
Yeah, I guess for me it really started at a pretty young age. I discovered computers when I was a kid and had a bunch of random startups as a middle schooler and even high schooler. And then I started, as you mentioned, Flashcards Plus, I think my junior or senior year of high school. And it was essentially just like an app that mimicked offline flashcards, which I was using as a high school student at the time, on my new iPhone that looked kind of like the shape of a flashcard. And that was like really one of my first like real startups. That I eventually was acquired by Chegg a few years later.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in the ed tech ecosystem for a while, did you have any interesting learnings from building Flashcards Plus?
Yeah, I think like for Flashcards Plus in particular, I really had no idea what I was doing because I was so young. I thought I knew everything at the time, but I really did not. But I like to say that like one of the most useful lessons that I got from that journey was just discovering what like real product market fit felt like. And like what that pool of users felt like, because it took a few years for Speak to get product market fit, and knowing what it actually should feel like allowed us to like persevere and continue to iterate instead of trying to prematurely scale something that just wasn't working as well.
That's really interesting, because I'd love to touch a little bit more on how you started, how you thought about achieving product market fit with Speak specifically, but it's just interesting that you built Flashcards Plus, and a lot of people typically avoid the consumer education sector, and this is now your second company building in space with success. So it's just really interesting. I'd love to hear about how you transitioned into building, post Flashcards Plus. What led you to building Speak? Why language learning? And what was the origin story of all this?
Yeah, so I guess this was back in maybe 2015 or 2016. Deep learning was actually like a really big field even back then. People kind of forget that AI was a little bit hyped back then as well. And I had just sold Flashcards Plus, and my co-founder Andrew, who we had met through the Thiel Fellowship a few years prior, we both were kind of at the crossroads trying to figure out what we wanted to do next. And we were reading all of these machine learning papers, and we basically just became convinced that over the next 5 to 10 years, AI was going to completely take off, and all you needed was just more data, better models, bigger compute, and eventually you would just reach this inflection point. And that got us super energized. So we spent 18 months just learning as much as possible about deep learning. We basically went to Stanford and Berkeley like every week and snuck into classes and asked professors for coffee. And at the end of it, we were training these models that were focused on speech. And that's when we really discovered that, like, especially back even in 2016, 2017, that was going to be where speech was already going to be sufficiently good enough that we could build something really interesting, and eventually we landed on language learning.
That's awesome. And I think for the audience members and those tuning in, why is language learning so perfect for AI to tackle? I mean, beyond just having a conversational buddy that is low cost and available 24/7.
Well, those are some pretty good advantages. But yeah, I think I view that, my view would just be that AI is great for all education. But I think the reason we started with language learning, ultimately we want to build a general purpose, basically superhuman tutor for anything. But the reason we started with language for many reasons was because we believe that the technology was there to build a truly valuable, disruptive experience first. Other subjects I think will come eventually. But the great thing about language learning is you really just need a conversational buddy. You just need someone on the other side that's willing to talk back to you. And that's why, even just in the beginning, speech was the area that we started with, just being able to accurately understand someone when they were speaking with a strong learner's accent. And then now, obviously, with language models, the one thing they're very good at is talking. And so we found that really, I think language learning is like the perfect starting point, and there's just so much we can do now to replicate that.
Yeah, and it's just amazing, I think, being able to see the evolution of what's available in the speech recognition space, even just seeing what voice engine, or OpenAI was able to release a voice engine recently, so excited to see what you all do with that. I guess switching gears to the business piece of Speak, you all started in South Korea and then expanded to the rest of East Asia, and then now are global. Even just last week I checked and you all have now Spanish, which is amazing. How have you thought about expansion? Why start there? Would love to hear any lessons learned from that market expansion strategy.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that we needed to focus somewhere, especially in the beginning, to find the product market fit. And when we started with South Korea, the reason was actually a little bit counterintuitive. We thought it was by far the most competitive market out there with the most solutions for consumers. But that signaled to us, one, that there were actually a lot of consumers that were actively searching for solutions. And two, if we were to build a truly 10x better experience, that'd be the only way we'd be able to succeed in that market. And so we knew that we would get the most reliable signal on whether or not we were actually building something of value. And now, in terms of expansion, as you said, we're available in most places around the globe, working really, really hard to make that fully global. And I think one of the really cool things is just the fact that AI has enabled us to start expanding so much more rapidly.
Yeah, no, it's amazing growth. For all the AI founders in the audience, and we have a ton of entrepreneurs and innovators who are not necessarily building for-profit startups, but even innovating in school, how do you think about or do you have any tips for people innovating with AI? You all have obviously been building and working in the AI space for many years now. But do you have any tips for founders in the space looking to build with AI? What are some pitfalls they can avoid or things that they should look out for?
I think the biggest thing by far is just avoid the allure of being, working on an exciting technology and just building something that you think is really cool. You really need to keep your ears sharp in terms of what are your users actually telling you, and are you building something that's actually solving real problems. I think that's the biggest thing that I see these days is a lot of people are just excited about the technology. They're building something. They track a bunch of what I call tire kickers that just want to check it out, and they're even willing to pay for it maybe. So you have these high revenue growth companies with no retention. So ultimately, I think for product market fit, if you want it, that's what you should be focused on. And the single biggest metric to look at there is just retention. So that's the number one thing I would say.
Yeah, it's really interesting, just even on the ventures front that we've been looking at, just how much I think adoption or usage, just having a high amount of users is not necessarily an amazing signal in this time, especially since there's so much novelty effect. And what we are really doubling down on or excited about are companies like Speak that have actually clicked on true user love and actual, high engagement, retention, and willingness to pay. So for someone who's been building in the space, as you've iterated and built with AI, it seems like there's going to be a lot of developments in the space and advancements. Kind of taking a 30,000-foot view of this space, what are you most excited by for, as it relates to technology? What should we in the education space be looking out for?
I think over the next few years, I'm super, super excited. I think in many ways, we already have the technology and we'll just, if there was never another advancement from what the transformer architecture has already given us, which is obviously not going to be the case. But if that were the case, like I think it'll be several more years before we can see really what people truly will be able to build with the technology. What I'm excited though going from here on the technology front is these models just becoming more multimodal. So really having a native understanding of video and audio and other modalities as well, and not just text. That I think is going to be like a really, really big trend to watch out for. And then of course the biggest question I think for educators and everyone in ed tech is just like, how do you get adoption? How do you get adoption in schools? What does the consumer landscape look like over the next few years? And there's I think a lot of very interesting questions there, but I think an immense amount of possibility.
Yeah, and exciting to see also everyone in the audience thinking through and iterating on all these problems right now and continuing to innovate in the education space. So last question, you all have raised an amazing $63 million in funding so far, including from OpenAI Ventures, and most recently also closed a $27 million Series B. What is next for you all, and what should we expect to see from Speak?
We're just going to continue to try to be as heads down as possible, building the value for our end users. And for us, it's really all about two things. It's all about building like a really great distribution engine that can grow, because that's super important. It's not just the product. But of course, then the other thing that we're really focused on is the product experience. We believe that like that's just like the most important thing here. We need to like truly reinvent the way people learn. And if we are going to do that, that's going to require like really, really great execution on the product side as well. So we're really focused on those two things and trying to be as heads down as possible.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what you've built so far, it sounds like, is clicking with a lot of people. So thank you so much again, Connor. It's been amazing being able to dig a bit deeper into the story of Speak and your story, and I'm sure we're walking away with many lessons learned. So for all of you tuning in, excited for more ASU+GSV, and thank you again, Connor.
Thank you, Claire.